What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, Monster Hunter Wilds absolutely exploded up the Steam sales charts as well as the concurrent player counts. I mean, it is like eye-popping stuff how many people signed in to play this game day one. But along with that is coming a lot of backlash specifically around how the game itself is running, and Capcom has sort of responded. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a surprise port for PC that has absolutely shocked the internet, bringing a game that has been pretty difficult to play well to the system natively, and it opens up a whole future of other ports just like it. And then we also got some new details around a canceled PlayStation game, one that people look back on and were really hoping to see what exactly Firesprite could do with it. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And I also put a link in the description, as people were saying that they didn't see a button down there. So there is still a link now in the description as well. And we're actually going to start today with, well, a birthday, and that's for the Switch, as it's now 8 years old, and it's hard to believe it's really been that long since the system released back in 2017, and of course now we're on the doorstep of having a big Switch 2 blowout, but it's still interesting to kind of reflect on just how long, yes, the Switch has been around, but also the massive library of titles that Nintendo's kind of just accumulated here under the Switch umbrella in that current ecosystem, where many franchises are entirely shown here, right? Like, they're completely available on the Switch. I'm thinking of Xenoblade Chronicles as an example. We're getting X on the platform. You can play all the Xenoblades there. And of course, it also goes back when it comes to NSO to the original Nintendo and the Game Boy and up to the 64. So there is a lot of value here with the Switch, but it's just interesting to think back on 2016, sitting on the couch back in the old basement and stuff, talking about the upcoming new hybrid system from Nintendo and what it could possibly do. I don't think anyone believed it would get to this point, but it's still very, very impressive nonetheless. And now here we are looking forward to the Switch 2 following up the currently, I'd say, the most successful system from Nintendo here in April. Also, it looks like last generation for PlayStation and Xbox, not ready to go away just yet. Now, we can see this is posted up. This is over on Twitter X with Charlie Intel saying Call of Duty 2025 could still release on PS4 and Xbox One per sources. Supporting last gen in 2025 is a wild decision, but the game is in development for the old consoles from what we've heard. They also going to say this may be a reason as to why there can't be two big maps in Warzone at the same time. Of course, that last part is a bit of speculation, but when you think of last gen, you think of the baseline then being the Xbox One VCR that is quite old now. I mean, at the end of this year, when we'd expect the next Call of Duty and Warzone a season to come out or whatever they're calling it at this point. But I mean, that'd be 12 years. Yeah, that's quite the support for that generation, and you feel like eventually you'd have to finally cut off that support. But Warzone itself, I think, is what's really keeping this going, as they should have some statistics showing how many people are still playing on last generation, and at very least, they may say, you know what, let's give it one more year and see if people then jump over to the PS5 and the Xbox Series. But by then, next year, there's a good chance we'll be talking about the next Xbox platform, while the Xbox One is still just hanging on for dear life with Call of Duty. Oh, and we did get confirmation that Super Soccer, which is a game that's being removed from NSO in Japan, is also being removed worldwide. Now, this is a screenshot we can see from the eShop that does show Super Soccer and its removal date of March 28th, 2025. So that coinciding with it being removed in Japan on NSO. And this is, I did a whole video on this and you could check that out. But basically the idea of games being removed from NSO is interesting because there's no way to actually purchase those titles. So once it's gone, it's just gone. And you can't access it even if you have it downloaded. Eventually you'll have to do a check-in with NSO, and then they just disable it on your system. It has made people wonder if there are other titles that maybe could have their contracts or just terms run up and then you have other ones being removed. Really, this just shows that it is a possibility. So something to consider, of course, going into the future, especially again, as we complete the 8th year for the platform. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Monster Hunter Wilds, which absolutely exploded over the weekend in terms of Steam charts, which, for example, you can see this here. This is over on SteamDB showing the all-time peak that we've seen so far, 1.38 million players. That's concurrent players. So people, of course, will log in and log out at any given time, and you'll see that these numbers fluctuate rapidly. I mean, it's all over the place. You can see the dips and the peaks and stuff. So in this case, I mean, we're thinking, I think Capcom's going to announce a big number for Monster Hunter Wilds this week. I wouldn't be shocked, I'll just say it now, if they showed up and said, oh yeah, it sold 10 million copies already. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So, I mean, super successful right now for Capcom in terms of sales, player interest, everything on PC, which really shouldn't surprise anyone too much. It's the next big Monster Hunter game, and that is a franchise that it has been building and building and building for decades now. But we have a bit of an issue, at least on PC. Consoles, a bit of a mixed bag there. I've been playing it on PS5 Pro, and well, it's been running fine for me. That's on the frame rate option that I set, like the frame rate mode. So I do have the 60 FPS as much as it can anyway. And I don't really notice anything that looks too offensive in terms of blurry visuals or low resolution. So at least for now, that PS5 Pro is putting in that value for me right now. But on PC, we have mixed reviews. I mean, it's sitting at just under 52% on 86,000 reviews. And if you look up and down the explanations as to why, most of it comes down to just their experience with performance in the game. So if you and this is the biggest thing with PC, it's such a mixed bag, as in it really comes down to your hardware configuration, of course, your setup, what you have running on Windows at any given time, but this does kind of seem to be a bit of a trend for Capcom, as RE Engine, when it comes to that, mixed with open world, hasn't exactly turned in great results. Think of Dragon's Dogma 2, that was a whole thing. So Monster Hunter Wilds being the latest situation with RE Engine open world, not a great port, really, at least in terms of the performance right now. Of course, you would expect Capcom to continue doing patches and updates, and they did respond somewhat to this, and it was one of those eye-rolling kind of responses. They said this over on Monster Hunter Status, and this is the official support handle for them, and it also links to the page that they are referencing here, saying if you're experiencing any initial issues with Monster Hunter Wilds on Steam, please try updating your graphics driver, turning off compatibility mode, and then readjust your settings. Thank you all for your patience and support. Now, I will say this, Digital Foundry did a deep dive on this from the PC side specifically, and it just doesn't seem to be a very well optimized port for this game on PC. And it wouldn't shock me if we hear, oh yeah, the PS5 was the lead platform for Capcom, and then they worked to port it over to PC as not, I don't want to say one that they neglect, but one they didn't place as much importance on. Now, at this point, Capcom should be realizing, wow, the PC, that market, is doing really well for us in terms of revenue. You see the numbers. I mean, just an incredible launch for this game on PC. So you feel like eventually they should maybe work that out at launch, as opposed to having to do, I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 patches here over the course of the next few months, trying to get this thing at least in a decent shape right now. And it's unfortunate, because otherwise, I mean, this is just a really, really good Monster Hunter game. I'm not super into Monster Hunter, as I've said, but it has hooked me a bit, and I'm 6 or 7 hours into it now. And from what I've been told, I'm halfway through the campaign, which the idea is you get through the campaign, the story part, and then it opens up and you can do all the multiplayer stuff, hunting different monsters, building up your weapons, your accessories, your armor and stuff. So that's kind of the point I'm trying to get to now. So we'll see with that. But here with PC, it's just an unfortunate launch for Monster Hunter Wilds, because otherwise this would be, a slam dunk release for Capcom across the board. So we'll see if they have anything else they can say, whether it's patches or, I guess, just a better response for players who paid the money and are currently sitting there with a game that is just not running up to standards on their PC. Next up, let's talk about a surprise announcement. A port to PC for Sonic Unleashed. And once this went up, a ton of people were sending it to me, and it makes sense. Sonic Unleashed isn't available on PC. Generally, you're going to emulate, say, the Xbox 360 version as an example. And I guess on the Xbox Series, there's backwards compatibility, but I mean, clearly not all the bells and whistles and options you'd expect from a modern day PC port of the game. Well, that changes right now because it's currently available. Now, we can see this posted up. This is over on Twitter X from Scythe. It says, a new way to play Sonic Unleashed on PC. Unleashed Recompiled is now available. They have the download link in the replies, which just links over to their GitHub for an unofficial PC port of the Xbox 360 version of Sonic Unleashed, created through the process of static recompilation. There's also a full trailer here, which is pretty cool to get a new trailer for Sonic Unleashed on PC. Now, because this is a native version running on PC, so it's not emulation, say, for the 360 that you're running through PC, which that on its own had a lot of issues when it comes to performance, but you have a large options menu to go through and set the experience how you'd like, an unlocked frame rate, ultra wide screen support, thank you, by the way, because that's, you can see just the change and the difference there. It's impressive stuff. Built-in achievements, and you also have different controller icons. So let's say you're using an Xbox controller, you'll have like A and B, or with PlayStation, you'll have circle and cross. And it also supports Windows, Linux, and yes, Steam Deck compatible. So this is really cool. There's a whole, if you just want to really go through step by step and in terms of tutorial, Acro posted one up over on YouTube that I will link down below in the sources. Now, they do point out you will need a copy of Sonic Unleashed and an Xbox 360 with a hard drive and a hard drive transfer cable. People, of course, I'm sure can find the files however they need to for an ISO or something, so I won't get into any of that, but yeah, they at least show you how you can do it more, I guess, legitimate in terms of dumping the game and then pulling the files for this recompilation, which is the biggest thing, right? They're not using any assets from Sega that's under copyright or anything for Sonic. You have to provide those yourself. But here's the part that gets very interesting. So think about the Xbox 360 generation and any games you would like to see get a PC port. Like games maybe that have been left behind or that haven't been ported over to PC with a certain standard, as we're seeing with unlocked frame rates, ultra-wide support, and so on. Well, there also seems to be a series of tools that people are noticing here that could make that a bit easier to accomplish. We can see this though over on GitHub. This, for example, is the Xenon Recomp, and it's a tool that converts Xbox 360 executables into C++ code, which can then be recompiled for any platform. Currently, it only supports x86 platforms due to the use of x86 intrinsics. Now, this project they mentioned was heavily inspired by N64 Recompiled, which is a similar tool for N64 executables. Now, people who are much smarter in this regard than myself, and I'm sure most of us, they're saying this isn't a one-click solution, like, oh, you press a button and boom, you have your project all done, but it is something that will actually help a bit and be able to expedite the process somewhat. So this is very exciting because the quality of this Sonic Unleashed port, I mean, it's impressive stuff. So we can start getting certain titles from Xbox 360 moved over. That it could be a really, really cool series of events with all these releases hitting PC. Of course, you gotta provide the files yourself, but I think people can figure that out again. And I wouldn't mind seeing all kinds of stuff from the Xbox 360 generation getting ported over with all these really cool features. But for now, if you've been trying to play Sonic Unleashed, it's a great time to do it. Or maybe you've never played it before, this seems to be the best way to experience it just outright. So really cool stuff. There's a bunch of links in the sources below if you want to learn more about this and fire it up on your PC right away. Next up, let's talk about Guitar Hero, which might end up being more disappointing than you'd think. So people, of course, have been calling for the idea of Guitar Hero to make a return in some way. And that might be the thing that triggers the monkey paw closing at least one finger because, well, take a look. This is an ad that seems to have been spotted on the Activision Instagram account, which is currently unlisted, but as Insider Gaming points out, if you have the link as they shared, you can still get to it, so it seems to be official, and that is Guitar Hero. Now, this from Insider Gaming saying, it was recently noticed an advertisement for a new Guitar Hero mobile title had been serendipitously uploaded to Activision's official Instagram channel. While the post has since been hidden, you can access it as shown here. The ad, which bears shockingly obvious AI art, claims the new Guitar Hero mobile game will be launched in 2025. And yeah, the artwork does look like it. I mean, AI kind of has that look to it if it's, I guess, more amateurish or done without, I guess, going over it multiple times. If you just gotta throw something together like, hey, make me a poster for a new Guitar Hero, it'll do it, and then you have to tell it to do it again or change this and that. It is a longer process than people will make it out to be to get it just right. This seems like something maybe an intern threw together with the help of ChatGPT or Grok or something and left it on the second try or something. It doesn't look great. Now, the idea of Guitar Hero on mobile, it does make sense, but it's an odd idea, because you would expect to have a guitar, like an accessory, sure, to play the different chords as they're flying down the screen. And I know we've seen Fortnite kind of play around with this idea where that was worked into their, what's now becoming their quote unquote metaverse, but Guitar Hero on mobile, the only reason that would make sense is to reach a large, broad audience. I just don't know how well that's going to work on a touchscreen. There was a whole thing with the DS. Do you remember that, where you had to get a little accessory on the side, it attached to it, and then you could basically hit all the chords and all the different colors that would show up on the screen, and you would strum the touch screen. It wasn't great, so that's the only thing where I'm a little unsure of with this one. Otherwise, though, Activision, who has already come under fire for using generative AI for like art and assets with something like Call of Duty, this isn't surprising. It's just more unfortunate, because this is the stuff that we've kind of mentioned it. There's concern around. It's the idea of, we don't have to hire an artist. We'll have ChatGPT figure this out, and hopefully it doesn't look too obvious. Well, they might want to revise that Guitar Hero one, because it sure does. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Twisted Metal. Now, this was a game that was in development at Firesprite until it was canceled last year. Then there were layoffs, as Bloomberg and Jason Schreier had reported. But now we have a little bit more information as to maybe what the strategy was here for this live service Twisted Metal game. It's still weird to think about that, but we can see this is posted up. This is over on MP First, who says this information comes from the website of someone who worked on the game as a UI programmer. According to a provided description, the game was internally known as Project Copper, and although it is not explicitly stated, it is suggested that the game was a battle royale. It contained third-person shooting mechanics along with vehicular combat, with the game's objective being to be the last one standing. So, the thing with Twisted Metal, I don't know if I would even look at it as a battle royale style game, a concept. Sure, you could make it fit into that box, but the idea was always kind of just arena style vehicular combat with guns and missiles and all kinds of craziness. Here, though, it also sounds like you'd be able to get out of your vehicle, and that maybe is the idea. You're driving around, it blows up or gets damaged, you jump out, get into another one, and then continue with this battle royale setup until there's just one person left. The battle royale concept, here's the issue with this. The games that are controlling that setup are set in stone, and I just don't know if there's gonna be much disruption anymore with that. I think that ship has kind of sailed at this point, and you have to be a bit more creative and think outside of the box, rather than trying to say, hey, battle royale, we'll be there. By the time you're there, it's too late, and it's been too late for a while. So in one regard, I understand why they would have canceled this, been like, this is not gonna work. But on the other end, I go, why did you try it in the first place with a battle royale Twisted Metal concept? Unless that's all it was. It's a concept. Let's see if we can make it work, and it didn't, so it got canceled. Like many other live service games that probably were based on older setups and seeing if you can disrupt a market that is seemingly impenetrable at this point, with Fortnite sitting there at the top. But let me know what you think about Twisted Metal Battle Royale. Would you have been interested in that, or would you have rolled your eyes when they started really talking about the mechanics in a trailer? And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is for the Xenoblade fandom out there. Which Xenoblade game is your favorite? Look at the results here, though. Xenoblade Chronicles, that's number one. There was a lot of history there with that game. I understand. It's probably very special for a lot of people. Also, I mean, if you didn't play any of the other ones, that's probably where you would have started there anyway, and it is also available on the Switch. But from there, I mean, it's almost a tie between the other three. We have 2, 3, and then X. I always hear about how people love X, so I'm a little surprised it wasn't at least the second spot here. But 2 and 3 are relatively tied, so, trying to pick between these, it is tough. I feel like for me personally, I would go with 3, but 1 was such an interesting situation with Project Rainfall and trying to get that game over to like the US and stuff. So again, a lot of history with that one, and I understand, but Xenoblade Chronicles X is very unique for like the aesthetic and stuff from the entire franchise. So that's the one right now. If I had to pick one to play, it's probably that. And it also makes some sense considering I've seen so much marketing for it, and everything they've shown looks awesome. And I'm ready to jump back in and spend a ton of time, 1, just to get to your scale, but then 2, to just play through the game here in a couple of weeks, when of course, a bunch of other games are dropping all around it. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from BK, who says, blows my mind that Nintendo still hasn't done anything at all to improve their eShop experience. Seeing the Switch is their only console, it's hard to believe that they just don't care. So what's the issue here, and why haven't they made any attempt at all to fix it? So I assume you're talking about the curation side of things, not necessarily the performance of the eShop, because I think that's pretty much decided. This is as good as the eShop can run in its current form, and I think anything else would take a bit more like system level overhauling, and I just don't know if Nintendo's willing to do that right now, after like the 8th year of the system now being completed. So I think what they'd be doing is more so working with the Switch 2 to, one, I think integrate the store into the OS so it won't basically launch into a web page, but two, maybe set up more restrictions or curation process, different things they can do with that system level storefront, and that stuff that would be implemented in this new system coming up. It's just unfortunate that they kind of turn a blind eye to a lot of just junk on the eShop right now. Maybe they're worried if it's like a slippery slope, if we really get involved and start saying yes and no to everything that's trying to come through the door, it'll get a bit out of control, and then we'll have almost a chokehold on all the different entries and things trying to come into the eShop. So it's like, do we want it to be completely open, or do we want to really restrict everything? And I guess for now, they're going with completely open. So we'll see if it's a little different, maybe with the Switch 2, and I guess we'll find out more about that on April 2nd. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or be able to hear more about that delisting for Nintendo Switch Online, since now it's been confirmed to also be just worldwide. I talked about that in a video. I'll leave it right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.